All right, welcome everyone. Thank you all for joining tonight. This is one of our largest events yet, so it's really great to see how many people are interested in spearfishing and harvesting. I'm just still admitting a few people here. All right, let's get started. So first, I would like to acknowledge that we are hosting this event across the traditional and unceded territories of the Coast Salish, Kwakwaka'wakw, and Nuchulus peoples. We acknowledge their original stewardship and send out our appreciation for protecting the waters we all enjoy. If this is your first time joining us at a Seekin event, we are a collective for water women and non-binary water people. We founded, I'm Nikki. I founded it with my friend Bethany, who's taking some time off right now, but we came together and founded Seekin because we recognize that there are still barriers that women and non-binary people are facing in water sports. So we welcome men at our virtual events, but we do ask that if you are joining us, that you leave your questions to last. You let everyone else go first, and you just don't interrupt anytime during the presentation. Thank you. So I'm going to pass it over to Aline here shortly. And if you haven't read her lovely bio, Aline is an oceanographer. She is a freediver, spearfisher, harvester. She surfs. She's a general all-around inspiring water woman. And she is super knowledgeable on this topic, so I'm really looking forward to hearing more from her.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much, Nikki, for this introduction. I'm very pleased to be here today and to see quite many names that I recognize. So, yeah, I'm very pleased to be here. Before getting in the topic itself, so before starting talking about harvesting and freediving, I wanted to give yeah, a little introduction of myself so everyone can understand a little bit more where I'm coming from and why this topic is not only interesting to me, but super important actually. So I'm born and raised in Quebec City. So I grew up in Quebec and I have some Quebecois and Senegalese descendancies. So Senegal, West Africa. So yeah, as you can tell, for the one that don't know me yet. So yeah, so I grew up in Quebec, and I have always been around the water. I've always been interested, and so through different experiences in life, I got even more curious about it and more interested. So yeah, when I was younger, I was spending a lot of time swimming and just trying to be in the water as much as possible. So through this, I decided to go to school, to university, to study marine biology. So it was something very interesting, and the process, all the academic process, was still very interesting. So even through the end and everything, and through school, I actually was lucky enough to do quite a few internships and to travel in a lot of different places. So not only I learned a lot of stuff in school, but I also learned a lot while traveling. And I got to know a little bit more how other places in the world, other communities were taking care of their ocean resources. So it definitely triggered quite a bigger interest for myself. So also would just like to mention something, as a lot of people might have realized now. So as I mentioned, I grew up in Quebec City. So English is not my first language. I would say it's maybe my third language. So if there's any words that sounds weird, it's normal. It's the end of the day for everyone. So I think a lot of people are also yeah, understand, and I might be a little bit tired. So yeah, so just to get back to my experience, so I started having a bigger interest, like through university, having a bigger interest about fisheries and how we can manage our ocean resources. Because yeah, we think about it as fisheries, as fish, but there's also other type of resources that could be used as food, or even as energy, or even as other type of produce. So for me, it was definitely from the side of like, what could we eat coming from the ocean? So yeah, so I did different travel, and one of the first one that really got me, that was when I was studying in Reunion Island. So it's a quite amazing island. It's a tiny island in the middle, almost in the middle of the Indian Ocean, super close to Madagascar. So while I was studying there, I went to Madagascar and to Maya, Thailand, another little island, just even smaller. So when I was there, I met a lot of really interesting people, but I saw a lot of people living quite in good harmony with the ocean, with the resources, and it was like so important. And I myself spend a lot of time in the water over there, but just to see how the culture and the way to take care of the resources was related, just the way that everything in their life was actually related to the ocean resources. So I understood at that moment that it was like quite one of the best way actually to approach the ocean resource protection was definitely related to a cultural approach. So it grew up on me. I came back in Quebec, and I continue my studies. So and then I went to study oceanography. So I did a master's degree in oceanography, and the thesis that I worked on was actually the impact of a top predator on the whole ecosystem. So we're trying to see what was the impact of this predator, but also what would be the impact if this predator is not in the ecosystem anymore. So it got very interesting. And so I developed kind of like a little expertise in trophic relations. So all the relationships between all the organisms in the ecosystem, but also the impact of like all the physical factor and the chemical factor that it can have on these organisms. So it went super interesting. That was quite a nice master's degree. And during this master's degree, I also did an internship in Senegal regarding fisheries. And it went even deeper into the relation between the culture and the way that we manage the ocean resources. So I did this internship with the WWF, and I was lucky enough to go in different communities and to see a little bit how they were assessing the problem of the depletion of the ocean resources. Because a lot of you might know, as for now, that yeah, the ocean resources are definitely getting depleted at some places, most of the places actually. And then just to see how to manage this. And in Senegal, it was something that was really important for the community, because it's something like 70% of the population is living from the ocean resources exploitation. So it's quite something. So if there's no more this exploitation, there's 70% of the population that they don't have the same role in the community. So it's something really important. And to actually to assess this and to try to find a way to have a better management. So regarding this, there was a lot of work that was done with a different group of women to address it, because the cultural knowledge was passing through the women. So by having the women working together, that was the best way to approach a better sustainability of the resource. So it got very interesting, and it was once again super related to any cultural sharing. And one thing that really struck me when I was there, I visited a place that it's about midway in the country, kind of more in the southern part, and it's a place called Joal Fadiut. So this place is very interesting because they have been eating shellfish that it looks very similar to a butter clam. Actually, they have been eating this shellfish since time immemorial. So there's a lot of stories about this, that the first people that were passing through the country were eating this shellfish, and it goes on. And through the fact that they were harvesting the shellfish, they were discarding the shell at the same place again and again and again. And then there's islands of shellfish. So people are living on islands of this shellfish. And it has been exploited since so long, and it was available, it was there, the size was similar. It's just like the approach to this exploitation was made in a way that it was truly sustainable. So it was extremely interesting to see this, that it's part of the stories, it's part of the songs, and the way to do it was definitely something that it was teach to everyone, to all kids, to know how to do it properly. So I won't go too deep in this, and I can just mention that it got interrupted a little bit with colonization, unfortunately, but this is another subject. We won't go there. But yeah, so this when I heard that story, I was like, okay, this is where I knew that there was definitely a way to do harvesting that could be done in a way that is sustainable. So yeah, so this is where I continued in this, and yeah, so just to move a little bit more in the future, we're now here. I'm here on Vancouver Island, and I've been working, it's been 3 years that I've been working with the Nunchano Tribal Council. So yeah, as I mentioned, I think there's it exists, there's a meaningful way to manage our ocean resources. And I do believe that the coastal communities are part of this way to manage the resources. So when I had this opportunity to work with the tribal council, I was pretty happy, because I believe that empowering the voices of coastal communities and First Nations communities, it's a way to achieve a better sustainable management of our ocean resources. So right now I'm working as a marine emergency preparedness coordinator. So as you can understand, it's not, I'm not doing anything about harvesting directly on my day job, and I'm coming here on a personal basis. So it's not through the Nunchano Tribal Council that I'm here, it's through myself. So yeah, so okay, I'm gonna just, sorry, just a moment here. It looks like I never used Zoom before. All right, okay. So the subject that I would like to talk today about is the freediving and harvesting. So oh yeah, I put it there because it's a good reminder. I wanted to first, which is not first anymore, but to acknowledge that I'm currently living in Ukilet, and I'm living on the Ukilet First Nation territory. So for me, it's really important, and we'll get there, because every time I'm going out there harvesting anything, I'm extremely thankful for all the work that the ancestors did on this territory. So for me, it's something that I'm trying to, not trying, that I'm doing actually every time I'm harvesting something, that acknowledging who worked on that land before, why this land is so productive. It's definitely because of them. So yeah, so to go back at freediving, so I did, as I mentioned earlier, I did quite a few travel in my life, but even when I was younger, when I was like in Quebec, it could be either through a lake, or even like when I was on the St. Lawrence River. That is, some people don't know, but it's quite big, and especially around Rimouski, where I studied, the St. Lawrence is like the sea, like the estuary is big enough that there's quite a lot of salt water there, also a lot of whales and a lot of sea life. It's quite interesting. But yeah, so I spent a lot of time in the water. When I was traveling in warmer water, this is where I went a little bit further in the snorkeling and a little bit the freediving. I won't say that I was freediving back then, because it was like literally just a little blob under the water. But I did have spent a lot of time under the water scuba diving. So for snorkeling was always a good way for me to spend even more time in the water. So I tried a lot. And then when I moved on Vancouver Island, I started snorkeling even more, because here it's pretty accessible. There's an amazing marine life, but there's also the fact that you can go swim all year long. So for me, it was very important. So yeah, so I developed that part, and recently I did a freediving course, which for me changed a lot of things, because I was feeling way more confident, but also I was like a little bit more knowledgeable about how to kind of push myself to be a little bit longer in the water while staying safe. So yeah, I've always been super careful, because I started scuba diving first. So I was having a lot of safety. The safety part of it for me was always super important. And I think it's really important, because this sport is quite interesting, super accessible, but it's really important to stay safe, so nothing bad could happen, of course. Yeah, so I did this course with Bottom Dweller for diving, and it was really, really amazing, and I learned a lot, and I continued free diving after that. So yeah, it's been a little bit less than a year, and it opened so many doors. So I was a little bit harvesting before this, so I'll get to there too. So I was doing a lot of like harvesting from shore while snorkeling, and this is where I was going a little bit longer in the water, even while snorkeling, trying to harvest things like crabs, sea urchins. But now I can say I'm way more successful at harvesting them. So it definitely opened that door. It's super important. So I would like to, before going to the rest of the presentation about like the sustainability and harvesting, I would like to present a little bit of what is important for me before going for a free diving session that sometimes can be harvesting, sometimes just free diving. So part of the gear that I think it's really important. I have it all behind me. Okay, sorry. The famous mask, like seriously, if you want to see something in the water, anything actually, it gets really foggy. There's a lot of tricks on the internet to how have it less foggy. Yeah, so I'm just gonna present some gear, but in the same time, if you want to have more detail about this, there's a lot of information available on the internet. I'm gonna just show my favorite items and the items that I think that are really important to get you started. But and also I don't think you need to go like super deep or complicated, just basic things. The second one, the snorkel. It's yeah, definitely super important to breathe. It's kind of funny because you could go without the snorkel. Like there could be a way that you can just breathe or whatever, but like it's super comfortable to have the snorkel and it's pretty cheap. The other one, before a lot of things which people don't think about, but for me, it's the knife. I think it's really, 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 really important before even having like the wetsuits or whatever. Like for sure, you're gonna get cold, you're gonna have a wetsuit, you're gonna have something, but the knife is actually something that could be yeah, almost life or death in the water, because you want to be able to yeah, cut if you're getting cut in the line, you want to be able to cut this line, or just safety wise too. The knife is really important. The next one will be the wetsuit. So yeah, wetsuit is really good. Myself, I have one with the Farmer John. Like it's kind of the Ferrari of the wetsuit, like just to have something that neoprene layer that is going all the way up to your shoulders. It's also the one like the open cell, so it helps to stay warm, because the open cell of the wetsuit will be really kind of sticking to your skin, so it kind of almost creating another skin, so you don't feel the water to your skin, so it stays warm way longer. So, and of course there's the hood, the vest going with it, so it's just to stay super warm. So mine is 7.5, so basically when I'm diving over my torso, I have 15 milliliters of wetsuit, so it helps definitely. But I think you can go with a surfing wetsuit, and especially that right now the weather is getting way better and the water is getting warmer too. I used to dive for a long time with a surfing wetsuit, as we can see on the picture here. So it was like, actually, even for surfing, I'm not using it anymore because I'm getting cold, and I used to dive with it. It's just, yeah, it's just, you need to know when what is your limit to not be in hypoxia. And I think there's a really awesome talk next week or the week after about like swimming in cold water. So I will definitely recommend it. It's a good follow-up on this. The other really important thing is the dive belt. So it's a tricky one though. I would recommend to have a good one. It's important, but in the same time, it's really important to not be overweighted. So to not put too much weight on the dive belt. So myself, even with this 15 milliliters of wetsuit, I have maybe 10 pounds. I even heard someone that was saying, like, if you can't bring yourself down in the water just by helping you on the kelp, don't even think to go down. So there's not always a kelp available, but I think it's a good way to having weight to bring you down. It's not the way to access the bottom. It's, you need to learn how to swim down and then stay there. There's a lot of reason, I won't go there right now, but there's a lot of reason for safety that you don't want to have too much weight. Part of it, if you think about it super simply, if you're swimming, you're staying a little bit too long and then you're passing out, and then you're not floating back to the surface, it's could be a little bit tricky. So this is why we say that you want to be positively buoyant, so being like floating back to the surface for the first 5 meters. And a lot of harvesters are spending a lot of time in less than 5 meters. So basically you want to be floaty. So it's, I'm just gonna say it quick like this. Another really useful thing is the mesh bag. So as you can see, it's just a veggie mesh bag. Like, you can put so many things in there, all your sea urchins, sea cucumbers, so it's pretty useful. So you don't need anything fancy. Once again, so you just want to have something that gets you in the water. And These are my old little scuba diving fins. They're they're very useful. You can go super far with this, so this is already very good for this. So once again, you don't need anything fancy. It's with your level of comfort, and especially if you're starting, just get out there. Get something that keeps you as warm as possible to see in the water, and that would be a good start. Now, now that you're ready to go dive, we need to ask the proper questions. So, okay, I have a list of questions here. I don't want to kind of overdo it neither, but I think it's very important to get there. So what is happening is it's kind of like a list of questions that we can start asking each other. It's like, and after a certain point, it's gonna come naturally. So I'm gonna go through these questions. There might be more, there might be less. If you have anything, any question after that, you can always ask me. So why are you going? So are you going to impress your friend? Are you going harvesting? Are you going exploring? Are you going swimming? It changes your intention, and it's really good to have an intention, but it's good to understand why you're going there. So where are you going? So what is this spot? Is it on First Nations territory? Who is living there? Is it on someone's property? Is there someone that has been harvesting there since forever? Do you need to ask your permission? Is there any closures? Also, you don't want to have the FO coming and being like, you're poaching. So when there is a closure, there's different reasons for it. A lot of time it's related to, sometimes it's seasonal, related to mating season or just helping for reproduction. Sometimes it's also for safety. So if there's any biotoxins or anything like this, so it's for everyone's sake. It's happening a lot for shellfish, so be aware. But yeah, so for different reasons like this, you don't want to be harvesting when there's a closure. So how often do you go there? So if you're going harvesting all the time at the same spot, the renewal of the spot might not be happening as fast as you going harvesting. Also, if you're going swimming there and you're just swimming there and you're seeing that there's a lot of life, and then you're seeing that there's something different, it might um, bring a different perspective. Also, who are you going with? Are these people trained? Are these people going there with the same intentions than you? Are these people ready for the day? So it's kind of important, like just knowing like what is the level of experience of your dive buddies. And then we get to the real harvesting part. So what species live there? Like, what do you think you will see? Do you know these species? Do you know if it's open? Are you ready? Do you know how to identify them? Do you know, is there mostly fish? Is what type of habitat? So all of this, what do you know about this area? Just a moment here. I just need to move. So, and what are you hoping to collect? So when I go for lingcod, that is a pretty big fish. I will not go with the same equipment that if I want to harvest sea urchins or seaweed. So, but also knowing what you're going to be collecting. So what is the minimum size that I can harvest? Lingcod is a good example, 65 centimeters. Like, do I have something to measure it? How do I know? Do I have something to compare it to? Also knowing more about the fish itself. So if we think about the rockfish, like there's some rockfish that are living like for a long time. So if I'm harvesting a rockfish and I know that like it can live for 100 plus year and it's a big one, so it means it's older. So I won't try to go for the bigger one. I can try to go for a smaller one, but just knowing things like this about the species. So what are you hoping to collect? Also, how will you euthanize it? So how are you prepared for this? I always have a knife so I can euthanize my prey as fast as possible. So I'm just being aware that they're not suffering. And how will you handle your catch? So this is very important. I've seen a lot of time people that are catching a lot of things without thinking about like, do they have time to process it? Will it be processed normally? Do they know how to process it? Sea cucumber, it's a good example. What part do you eat? Do you know this? Like if you're eating the whole thing, maybe you just need one or two. If you're eating just little pieces, what will you do with the rest? Are you discarding it? How many will you get to have enough food? So knowing a little bit about what you're catching, but also how you will process it will help your approach about everything. So these questions are kind of just simple questions that we should ask ourselves before even going out, thinking that we could be harvesting and just sorry, okay. Yeah, before we could be harvesting anything. And it's the kind of question that sometimes when we're going hunting on land, people are ready to ask this, but because it's in the water and we don't see the area the same way, we don't think about all of this. And all of this, it's not even necessarily just about the sustainability, but it's also about like just to be ready to go harvest something. So yeah, it's not necessarily asking this question will not necessarily help us to save the stocks or it. At the end, yes, it will contribute to this, but it's question also to ask for ourselves to make sure that we're ready to go out. So it's a little bit related to safety. So yeah, sustainable harvesting, also ethical harvesting, there's a lot of things to think about, but if we I think as human, the first thing that we need to think about is our own safety and our own comfort is this. Then after that, there is a whole other subject that is more the sustainability. How can we have it done for a longer time? And for this, there's quite a few resources. So, sorry. Okay, here I wanted to put together a little bit a way for you to be a better naturalist. So when you're going out there, I personally believe, I heard that also from other harvesters, that before going with something, a tool that could help you killing an organism. So having, before going with a spear gun or even the nets or even anything, before collecting anything from this environment, you should know about this environment. So the best way to learn about it is to go swim, to go observe it, to read about it, to collect the information. So as you're going more out there, let's say you're going to the same little pool, the same bay, and you're swimming there, you're saying that, oh, you're realizing that there's sea cucumbers, there's this type of seaweed, there's oh, under this rock there's a fish that is always going there. Oh, is this fish is going hiding in a den. So there's different things like this that you're gonna observe, you're gonna learn, you're gonna realize. And then afterwards, you're going to have more information. You're going to be more aware and able to know, okay, this fish is living longer. This fish is more accessible. This fish is easy to catch. Or there's a lot of sea cucumber here. Oh, wait a minute, the season changed. There's less of this seaweed. The seaweed is smaller. So you're going to observe little things like this and know a little bit better about the environment. But also, while reading this, so just for the fish, here on the left corner, so we have different books, but just for the fish, there's a lot of information out there and there's a lot of fish that are quite important. And just for it, you can read for a long time and learn about it, and seeing it in real life is gonna help to understand a little bit the dynamic and what's happening. So once again, I want to refer to the rockfish. So There are some rockfish that are super territorial. There's some rockfish that are smaller and having a shorter life. So these rockfish will reproduce more often. So if you harvest two, next year there might be 5 more. But if you take one of the bigger rockfish, let's say that is more territorial, is staying at the same place for its whole 150 years, and you harvest it, well, it's gonna take longer before there's another one that will be living there. So there's some difference like this that you can't learn it all at once, but you can learn it slowly, and it takes time. You need to take your time. You need to observe. You need to go out there. So yeah, I just wanted to show a little bit the resources that are available. So there's for the fish, there's quite a few interesting ones. So I put some. I know it's busy. There's a lot of information. You take whatever you need. So for the fish, there's quite a few guides. There's some that are smaller. There's some that are bigger, that are kind of almost a Bible. I won't say that like I use the book from Andy Lamb as a Bible, but almost. So the coastal fishes is pretty interesting for me. I really love this book. So there's different authors. So the ones for the seaweed, there's Bridget Clarkson. Really interesting what she did as well. For shellfish and invertebrates, so there's a lot. And this is very interesting actually. And the best part is like, they don't move that fast. So it's a good way to learn how to identify them, to start with them. And there's a lot of delicious ones. And it's super sustainable because, well, not all of them, but a lot of them is quite sustainable because their rate of reproduction is pretty interesting. And of course, like not all of them, don't go for the abalone, please, 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 okay? So it's part of it, like learning how to identify it. There's some species like this that it's a no-go. It's well identified, but so you're gonna find a lot of different species in there. You're gonna learn how to identify them, and a good example is the Puget Sound king crab. Please, before going harvesting any, learn about it. There's not that much information, but there's information out there, so it's definitely, you can read about this. And then there's some books that are more general in a way. The one in the middle is quite interesting for this. So if you can afford to have many, or you don't want to have many, there's one just right there. And one of the good resources that is available out there is your local aquarium. So personally, this is where I go buy all my RD field guides. So there's a lot of information. There's also a lot of experts working there. And yeah, I would definitely recommend it. And a lot of time you can go there and see the type of fish that could be, that you could harvest, or the ones that you can't harvest. So it's definitely worth a little visit there. And now, for the ones that are a little bit more modern, there's some online resources. So one of the things that I think is very useful is different blogs that are available. And there's one here, the Spearfishing Canada. There's a lot of information, and it's going to continue to grow. So please go have a little read on this. It's going to be very interesting, I promise. And also they're talking about free diving too. There's a lot of different information there, so it's quite related. Don't forget also the free diving community. So there's the Performance Freediving International there that personally I received their newsletter, and it's super interesting again about freediving. And then there's the regulations. So the DFO website is definitely a really, really important one to know. So this is where you go check what is open, what is closed. Also, this is where you renew your license because you don't want to be poaching. So really important. And there's 2 other really interesting resources. iNaturalist. So a little bit for everything. You're walking in the forest, you're diving in the ocean, really, really, really interesting. You can have, it can help you to ID what you're seeing, but it can give you information. So it's a thing though, personally, I don't bring my cell phone close to the water. I prefer the field guide, but if you're having your tablet, your cell phone, or whatever, you can do it afterward. It's super, super useful. And then the other one that is really, really your best friend is the Fishing BC app. Super important. So you can have your fishing license in there. You can see the regulation. You can ID your species. But the most interesting part is like you can record your catch. So you can have a catch log. And UBCNN's catch log provides additional Chinook and Coho catch log information to UBC researchers. So actually, you have a question that when you're entering your catch log, is asking if you want this information to be provided to the researcher. I think they were using it to compile data about recreational harvester, which there's not that much out there, and it's super useful to provide as much as information. So please report your catch. And the best part is like, even if you're catching nothing, report it, because this is an important data. Like, let's imagine that all of us were trying to go harvest something and we don't find anything to harvest. It's quite important to know this. So yeah, and a lot of things like this, it's, yeah, so it's super important. So I really hope that this was just, sorry, it might be just a little blob of too much information, but I hope it can at least inspire you to go out there, inspire you to kind of seek more information about harvesting, but also kind of like gives you some guidance that there's a way to do some sustainable harvesting up there. There's a way to be more aware of like what's happening in the water, and it's definitely while seeking as much as information as possible. So yeah, kleko. So it's thank you in channels, and I'll be just over here if you have any questions.
Aline, do you want to talk a bit about freediving certifications?
Yes, yes. Yeah, even if I don't think I'm the best to, and you can probably help me on this. So personally I did my freediving what is the first level. I did it with Bottom Dwellers Freediving. It's through Performance Freediving International certification. There's different type of certification, and there's also different levels. I know there's other type of school, and there's also different schools that are providing the courses on the island in BC and in Canada in general. I know, I think there's another one in Vancouver. I can't remember.
Oceanoid.
Shanoid. Awesome. Which is she is very interesting too. Yeah, so I don't know if you have any other things about the certifications.
Yeah, the three main schools, or I should say the most popular ones, are PFI, ADA. It's an ADA international certification, but then most countries have their own governing body of that. And then PADI, same for scuba diving. And then there's some smaller ones that seem to be like popping up here and there. But I'm going to type a website address in the chat, and this is for ADA Canada. And on there, you can go select your province or territory, and it'll show what instructors that are registered with ADA Canada are available in your region. And it's not just ADA instructors, it's instructors from all schools. So that's a really good resource. And then I would just add that before going out spearfishing, it is really important to get certified, because there's so much behind breath holding. As simple as it might seem, there's a lot going on within your body that's really important to understand before you even look at what you can do underwater.
I do agree. I definitely agree. And thank you very much for bringing this. It's definitely something that it's not just like, yeah, it's definitely being more safe out there, but it's also making the sport is safe, more safe. So it's helping a little bit everyone that is doing the sport as well.
Yeah, and I would recommend even because anytime you add on something like freediving or harvesting, even photography, it's giving your brain one more thing to think about. So get comfortable and confident freediving first, and then start thinking about all those other components that you might want to match with your freediving.
I think you're bringing a super, super good point here. Personally, I think even like before thinking about spearfishing is a good example because there's a lot of different way to harvest resources. But spearfishing, it's quite complex. And I heard a lot of horror stories, actually, which we don't have time to go there. I don't want to go there neither. But there's a lot of, it's a complex sport, and before thinking about killing something with the spear gun, I think the best way is like to be comfortable to be in the water, to know the environment, to be comfortable with the gear, and then getting there. So to be comfortable to be in the water, yeah, it's definitely it's so important to do a free diving course. It's safety first is the first rule in safety. Get trained and don't go alone.
Two most important. Okay, we've got some questions in the chat. Callie asks, do you have any resources to identify the First Nations territory?
Yes. So I know personally, around the west coast of Vancouver Island, I'm using the Nunchanood First Nations territory guide, something like this. But also, I know there's a website called Native Land that is pretty useful to identify the First Nation territory. And I can see that Sky has raised her hand, and I'm pretty sure she has some resources about this. Sky?
Hi, yeah. So Whose Land app is a really great resource. So you can download that, Whose Land. Yeah, that's what I use for work and for all things that I need to know for First Nations territory. And yeah, it's quite insightful.
Do you want to pop that in the chat for us?
I think I did. I think I only sent it to the person who was asking. I haven't used Zoom before, so I'll try again.
No worries. We'll try and do a roundup of everything recommended on social media after.
Okay.
And then we have, are all these international certifications, I think like ADA, PFI, and PADI are all recognized internationally. I don't know that I would, we have another question if Loki asks, would you recommend one type of certification over another? Personally, I think they probably cover a lot of the same. Both Aline and I did PFI, so.
And if I can add to this, I know PFI, I saw following them on Instagram, I see people getting certified at different places in the world. So my resources is telling me that yes, it's kind of international, and also in the name it says international, so I will assume, but assuming it's not the best. Also, I heard, but there's always a good way, and I do believe that it's a good way to learn, maybe to try different schools. So there's quite a few levels in free diving, so you can start the basic level, first level, and then there's intermediate, and then after that you can go even more professional side, supervisor and things. Why not trying a different school for a different level? So I do believe that the levels are pretty much the same in between. I could assume that at a certain point it's almost the same. So that could be a good way. And sometimes it's good also to learn in a new environment. Of course, right now I'm talking about kind of traveling for training. So maybe wait a little bit, but yeah.
I think personally it's probably more important the instructor themselves? Is this someone who has a teaching style that you learn well from? Is this someone who just naturally makes you feel comfortable in the water? There's two different sides of freediving. There's recreational and there's competitive. So is this instructor focused on one aspect more than the other? And just trying to find your match that way.
This is a really good point. I do agree.
And Christine says, how much of a difference do freediving fins make compared to scuba diving fins? I wear my surf booties when I freedive. Do the freediving fins fit over your surf booties? Do you have any recommendations for where to buy fins on the island?
I have a lot of answers about this. So, first of all, okay, the booties. My surf booties were working on my freediving fins because my surf booties were pretty kind of small, so thin, so it worked. However, if you're buying fins that could surf with your surf booties, once you're gonna change your surf booties, you might need to change your fins or something because they might not fit the same. Scuba diving fins can work, definitely. It's just gonna be less efficient, but it's their fins. Like if they can get you in the water and get you swimming, it's good. Like don't focus about anything else for the moment. And yes, I do have few recommendations on the island. However, right now I'm buying a lot online personally because I'm living in Ukilet. There's no dive shop here for the moment. So we're gonna have something coming in Ukilet, Pacific Pro Dive, but there is also the amazing Spearfishing Canada website. So not only you have the blog, but you also have a really awesome selection of gear there. So I really like the selection that they have. Personally, it helped me because I looked a lot, especially as a woman trying to find stuff my size. It took me a while, and I wish Spearfishing Canada was online when I was looking for my gear. So I will recommend it.
Yeah, there's also some Facebook groups on the island for freediving where you might be able to pick up used fins as well. And yeah, Facebook Marketplace. And Melissa wants to know, have you located scallops in your local area?
For me, it's almost a joke. There's something about scallops. I can't see them actually. I don't know why. I'm really bad at spotting scallops. So the best way to locate scallops is to understand a little bit in what type of habitat are they living. So are they living in sandy bottoms, rocky bottoms? So it's gonna be a first step. After that, are they living in an area where there's a lot of current? Not that much current. So while walking on the coast, you can identify some bays, some areas, and then identify some places that could be more where there's more potential to have scallops, and then you put your mask and snorkel and you go try to find them. And this part I can't really help, and I'm thinking that I might be distracted all the time because I'm looking for sea cucumber instead of scallops. So but also once you start looking for something, you kind of like start putting another lens and you start seeing them everywhere. So I'm just not thinking about scallops. So
one of these days.
I'm always thinking about scallops. I wondered if they were at a really, I don't know their habitat, so I'm gonna have to research that. But thank you. I'm gonna hunt for them in the Sound for sure. Thank you.
I know also they're kind of medium deep, if I can say. So this is where I will definitely recommend to make sure that you're staying safe, because I know they're a few meters deep. They can be a little bit shallower also depending on the tide, but it's definitely something you want to be ready, have a good knife, and just be ready to spend maybe a little bit more time under the water.
All right, then we have a few questions from social media. What is your favorite catch to eat?
Sea urchins. I still can get over it, and it's like right away on spot, and like I'm trying to like I'm always sharing it with people as much as possible, but yeah, I'm eating it different ways. But like sea urchins, there's something so surprising and so like refreshing about it. There's also a lot of studies about it that it has a lot of effect on your mood. So yeah, it's really interesting. Another one that it works a little like Google search. Apparently combined with THC, it can gives you a little good afternoon.
Awesome. I thought you might pick sea urchin. I'm sorry, everyone, my cat's going a little wild in the background if you hear her meowing. And then we have another question. With the Seaspiracy document, do you believe vegans are only looking at a small part of the problem? So I'm guessing this is in relation just to how they recommended, like, don't eat seafood in the documentary.
So, okay, so I'm not sure that I understand the question. So if the vegan is a part of the solution or the problem?
Yeah, I wasn't very clear on that either. I think what they're trying to say is how the documentary kind of only showed one part of the story. So are saying no to all seafood, is that only one part of the problem of like what the ocean is facing?
No, and I don't believe that saying no to seafood is a solution by itself. I think it's saying yes to better seafood is part of the solution. So there's different ways to see how the ocean resources, the dynamic behind it, and there's a lot of like traditional knowledge, which is not something just from the past. It's something that is still very much accurate, and there's a way to see it that so human has been around and for a while, and we have been using ocean resources for a long time, and it's one of the most important food source, and it's been a while. So there's a lot of evidence about the fact that humans have been kind of like doing a lot of permaculture with the ocean. So this approach is kind of like playing with the ocean a little bit, has its a garden, and like making sure that there's some areas that can be more productive and some areas that could kind of need a little intervention. So there's kind of a balance about all of this, that if you remove right away all the human from this, there's going to be an unbalance. There's going to be something that will be missing because we have been part of this ecosystem for a long while. So I don't think the solution is like to remove the human from the equation all at once. For sure, there are some places that will require a no-take zone. For sure, there's some type of exploitation that will require to be stopped immediately. And there's definitely a way to harvest it properly. So, and I think this is why I think we have a lot to learn about the coastal communities and the people that have been taking care of these resources for a while. Not only they took care of it, but they also shared the knowledge that they have about it to the next people. So it's just a matter of like also bringing back this balance. So yeah, this is why I don't believe that removing human from this equation is the solution. However, we can be part of a better equation, maybe.
That's a really good point. I think a lot of the times when we're looking at problems, especially here, like humans have been around since the last ice age, and people forget how much of an important part we are of the ecosystem as well. Does anyone else have a question they'd like to ask Aline before we wrap up?
Oh, I think I just saw a question. So there is a question about how to eat or prepare sea cucumber. Okay, that sounds very interesting, actually. I don't have many recipes. Actually, I feel a little bit bad right now because I heard a pretty awesome recipes not too long ago, but I don't remember all of it. One thing that is really important, actually. So it's for sea cucumber, you're cutting the sea cucumber and you take the mussels inside. So it's kind of like the lines that are 2 by 2, and there's I think 4 or 5. So you kind of like take them with a knife, and or you can do it with your fingers, and it's kind of like a little bit tricky, but there's a lot of videos. And then you take it, you make sure that they're dry. You just dip it, I think, in a little bit of flour, and flour mixed with seasoning, and then in a pan with a lot of butter, maybe a little bit of garlic and chili flakes, and it's gonna be delicious.
That sounds really good. Maybe you can make a video tutorial on seakin for everyone.
Sounds pretty good.
Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna get to the draw. So Bottom Dwellers, they have donated a spot in a course it's a 6-hour freediving harvesting course. It's on April 19th and 20th. And it's all about sustainable and ethical harvesting practices, techniques, equipment, risk management, and local species. So this is with Bottom Dwellers and Spearfishing Canada. So basically the next step up from this. So I did my random number generator, and Melissa Hardy is our winner.
It's awesome. Congrats, Melissa.
So I will put Melissa in touch with Chris, and yeah, we can't thank Bottom Dwellers enough. We hope that we can bring you all more partnerships like this. All right, thank you everyone for attending, and a big, huge thank you to Aline for leading us through this.
Thank you so much for having me over. Thank you so much for hosting events like this. It's so awesome. And yeah, I really hope everyone will get inspired and everyone will stay safe and try to harvest more resources. So.
Yeah. All right, everyone. We'll see you next time.